welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how we actually caught some trade on USDCAD, and that trade was actually sent to our community. Okay, all right. This is hourly chart, you know, for for some of us that are day traders. We actually use, most of the time we use 4 hourly and 1 hourly, sometimes 30 minutes as our base for analysis. Okay, and of course we're going to be we're going to be using lower time frames such as 5 minute charts and 1 minute chart to really look for our entry. All right, so let's really look at this chart. All right. Um. Right. Let me just try to board it a little bit. Okay. Uh. Please just a moment. Okay. Please just a moment. Okay. All right. So very quickly, let's just look at this chart from here. Now you can see that from okay. Look at this place. This place was actually ranging. Price was ranging all of the time in this particular place, right? Until there was this expansion to the downside, okay? And of course, the expansion came and, created some kind of order block area, all right? So price actually indeed came into that particular place to actually retest it. But the fashion as with which price actually moved out of that particular place to come and mitigate, the order block around this place, that particular fashion is, it's really very strong. It's match our criteria for looking for you know their criteria for zone qualification. Number one, it moved quickly out of that particular place. Number two, it broke this particular resistance, at this particular place, it broke it, to the upside. Fine. So on the basis of that, that is why we are going to mark the other block that was responsible for that. All right. Okay, so that is actually exactly why we are going to mark out uh that particular we mark out that particular place. All right. So okay, so this was the first touch. This was I mean, this was should we call it second now? So this actually the first touch in that particular place, or the second, in that particular place, right? And of course there was this huge move to the upside. And of course, one of the criteria is actually the freshness of the zone, of course. So we were able to look at this, and we saw this. Okay. All right. So recently, price as price came into that place, and it was actually it got rejected. Okay. So the recent one is actually in this particular place. All right. Price got in here, right into that area, you know into this particular area here, and it was just ranging in that particular place. Let's change that to light pink. Okay, so the entire area here was actually ranging right on top of that particular zone. All right, so let's quickly, once price breaking into that zone here at this particular place, that is exactly when we broke into 5 minutes charts. Okay, that is when we got into 5 minutes, and that's when we begin to look for our entries. Okay, now how do you look for your entry? Here is it. Let's start from here. Let me remove this rectangle. Okay, good. All right, so let's start our analysis from as now our entry analysis from that top. Okay, all right, good. Now what we are looking for, it's really very simple. Basically when price is actually pulling, is doing a pullback into your demand area, what you're going to have is going to be series of lower highs and lower lows. Okay, you know here is an, I mean, this is a high, this is a low. It came to this, it came, there was a pullback into this place, but this high was still protected, it was not broken, meaning that the low here is a very weak low, because price came in and immediately it plummeted to the downside, breaking this particular low in the process. Now we're going to mark the high that produced this particular low that came into, into that, into the supply area. Now when this happened, if there is a particular, if there is a strong move, an impulsive move that broke this, then of course we'll have looked for the other block that was responsible for that, for that breaking of that resistance, for us to look, but to look for entry. But that didn't happen. That did not happen. Now what happened was that there was a slight pullback, and eventually that, the support there was broken to the downside. So where is the high that produced, the move that broke the support? It's actually going to be here, right? So basically it's going to be there. Then we're going to shift, you know we're going to shift our stuff into the downside. Now another thing you need to pay attention to is that, okay, now look at this move here. Look at this move. Price got to this resistance. It was a weak, the weak of the candle broke that particular. We don't do weak break or shadow break. What we are looking for is body break, just a body of the candle breaking as this. But what happened, why we didn't really choose, or why we didn't pay attention to this leg, is that if you look at the series of the candles, they look really very small. They don't have power behind them. They don't really show that, just look at there is no volume in these candles. Look at them, look at how small they are. It means that there are no volume, there are no power behind them, right? So when we look at that particular leg, and what it actually did, so we didn't really see much happening around there, so we have to ignore that. And of course you have to do that. Okay, that is exactly what you have to do. You just have to ignore it when you have candles that with no power behind them. All right, so eventually price actually came indeed back down. Okay, so when price was actually pulling down, it came back to really, to take out the other support set. So we have a new high at this particular place, and here we have a new low. Okay, at this point. All right, so when eventually, price just ranged a little bit around here, and look at this impulsive move. You can see that there is power behind this move. Boom, boom, boom. There is the power, the force with which it moved out of that particular zone, eventually you know breaking that particular resistance to the to the upside. Fine, that is exactly what we want to see. That is the confirmation we are looking for. So what next are we going to do? We are going to locate the other block that were responsible for that particular one, and that's responsible for this impulsive move. And we're going to mark both the distal and the proximal. Now, the proximal, because since this is a demand, it means that the price is actually, somewhere up here. And we're going to mark the edge of that particular support. The proximal is going to be the part of that order block that is nearer to the market, to the recent market price. And the distal is actually the part of that order block that is further away from the current market price. So our proximal, which is in this case the top of this other block, is going to be our entry point. Okay, is going to be our entry point, and the distal is going to be our stop loss. That is exactly where we're going to put our stop loss. Okay, but for some reasons, sometimes you can actually shift your stop loss a little bit, so the just give it some how do you call it now, just some breathing space. Okay, sometimes just you can just pull it down a little bit just to give it some breathing space, because sometimes we do experience what is called stop on. Stop on sometimes. So, sometimes it's like that. Now, there's another thing I quickly wanted to notice. As you can see that, of course, as when price just went out of that particular place, broke, broke this resistance. There's a structure break. This is exactly where we have, our shock. I think, okay. Um, okay, let me quickly do this. So that is where we have our choke. That is where we have actually have change of character. Okay, see, COH here is called change of character, and this is actually where we truly have a break of structure like that. Okay, so look at what happened. There was a pullback, and there was another production of a new high. Now, if you are not, if you don't careful, you don't really have to follow these new legs. You have to wait for price to come back to exactly where it started from, where the entire gist actually started from. So, okay, so that's exactly where you're going to place your order. So basically that is where, so all you have to do is just to wait. So indeed price actually came back. Of course, there was a little bit, this is exactly what I was actually trying to talk about, that there are times you actually have some sort of stop hunt. That's why we have to give, you have to give these some kind of breathing space. But indeed price came in. Let me remove this choke line as now. Okay, all right. So indeed, price actually moved back, came back to that particular space, and and boom, to the upside. So basically, it's really a very easy setup. It's a very easy and straightforward way of trading. So I'm going to see you in the next one.